Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Nothing good will come of it if you start the dialogue with the words, "Hey, smart guy." But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Customer realizes he's an idiot. I worked in a deli, and one day we were dealing with a rude customer. He'd already complained a few times that day about petty crap. It was a locally owned place, and around the holidays, we would replace the regular salt and pepper shakers, which had salt and pepper printed on them, with these festive ceramic ones shaped like snowmen, Rudolph, Santa, etc. So this idiot stomps up to the counter where my manager's doing some paperwork and practically shouts, "Hey, smart guy, how the hell am I supposed to know if this shaker has salt or pepper in it?" My manager grabs the salt shaker and shakes a few grains of what's clearly salt into his hand. He says. Manager calls me over. "Do you think this might be salt?" he asks me. "It's clearly salt, but I'll go along with the act." Man, that's a tough call." "Hey, Jimmy," he calls to the kitchen. "Come out here a sec." Jimmy comes out, and my manager asks him to hold out his hand, and he shakes a few grains of salt into it. "Now, Jimmy, in your opinion, would you say that's salt or pepper?" "What are you talking about? It's effing salt," Jimmy says, looking at us like we've lost our minds. My manager turns to the customer and gives him the shaker back with a flourish and says with a smile, "Jimmy says it's salt." Customer realizes he's an idiot, walks back to his table muttering. And our second story, bad attitude as a sales rep? I report you. During Boxing Day, I bought some dress shirts without trying them on because they were pretty cheap and I was in a rush. I just took my usual size of 15.5. At home, I tried them on and figured that the brand's 15.5 size fit like a 16, so I went back to the store. It's a pretty large and well-known store, and asked for help. The girl who helped me told me I couldn't exchange without a price tag on them, even though I have the bill, so I only asked her if she could help me with this situation at all. She asked me if I preferred to deal in French or English, to which I replied, "Oh, whichever is okay." After hearing that, she took my bill and stretched it straight up and showed me the policy on the back, telling me, "Here, read the policy. There's nothing I can do about this," and then started to walk away. I admit my fault and tell her, "Oh, I have one with the sticker though. Can you help me with that?" She grumpily walked me to the section of the shirt and told me they didn't have the same style anymore. She walked me to the clearance rack and told me to look through it. As if to back up her B attitude, she tells me, "Very sorry, it's not me, it's the policy of the store." I tell her that her attitude was rude, to which she claims that was her personality to speak that way, and walked away. I tell her also that panning the bill out for me to read was rude also, but she didn't even look back and kept on her way. So I looked through the clearance rack and found nothing, so I went to see the main customer service counter to explain my situation. They refunded all 3 shirts and asked me why I didn't have any rep helping. I told them the story, and they called the manager of the store. He came within a minute and listened to my story. He apologized and assured me it shouldn't have happened. I said thank you and walked away. As I headed out, I saw the manager rushing to the department where the sales rep works, feeling pretty satisfied to know someone's going to get bitched on. And our next story. As you wish. Some years ago, I was doing contract IT for a number of local companies who were too small to have their own IT staff. One company was a favorite of mine because all the people who worked there were really nice. It was a small company of 12 people, and I honestly believe every one of them would have given you the coat off their back if you were cold. I was there one day making some adjustments to the Soho VoIP system I'd installed a couple of weeks earlier when one of the ladies who handled the phone calls took off her headset and let out a huge sigh and said, "I've just had rude mean guy on the phone." Her boss, clearly having heard, came out from her office and asked if she needed to take the rest of the day off. She shook her head and responded that she was okay. She'd just taken early lunch. When I finished what I was doing, I stepped into the owner's office and asked her to tell me about rude mean guy. After a bit of prodding, I got the story. It seems that rude mean guy had been a customer some years before and had not been happy with his purchase. They, the company, had done everything they could, including offering a full refund, but this guy just seemed to prefer calling 3 or 4 times a year to tell whoever answered the phone how dissatisfied he was with the company and their work. He was never explicitly abusive, never really shouted, never made threats, but he was very good at making whoever he spoke to feel bad. Apparently, his pet peeve was that he felt that whenever he called, they followed some kind of script that detailed how they were to respond to customer calls. He frequently said, "You're just useless. I'd be better off talking to a machine." Inspired by Rude Mean Guy's favorite insult, I asked the boss if she wanted me to make the problem go away. She asked what I was proposing, but I just smiled and said, "I'm proposing to make sure that Rude Mean Guy never speaks to one of your staff again, no matter how many times he calls." The idea was clearly a welcome one, so I excused myself and went back to working on the VoIP system. A quick check of the log showed that what I suspected to be Rude Mean Guy's phone number was being detected by the system. I confirmed this phone number with their records. I was their IT guy, of course, I could see everything, and reconfigured the VoIP system to always redirect any incoming phone calls from that number to the fax. I took care of their IT for another 2 years after that, and I checked the logs of the VoIP system each time I was on site. It was nearly 5 months before Rude Mean Guy called again and ended up listening to the shriek of the fax machine. He tried about 5 times that day, then stopped. He tried again the next day. Only one time that time. He did try once the following week, after which he never called again. Which is a shame, because he said he'd be better off talking to a machine. And our last story, how my dad got revenge on a teacher who bullied me. When I was in 8th grade, I tried out for a spot on the drill team. For those unfamiliar with that, it's the group that dances alongside the marching band, and we were separate from the cheerleaders. Think the Rockettes, but awkward. The reason I tried out was because those girls, pretty popular teacher favorites, laughed at me when I showed up for the informational meeting. They said I wasn't right for it and didn't belong. It made me more determined to learn the routines and become a little more fit so I could do them. I was flexible as much as a 14-year-old could be, but at home I practiced and stretched and showed up for the rehearsals and tryouts. Only a couple of decent girls would not act like I was poison in the line when we had to link our arms. I passed tryouts because I could do the routine. My dad, who owned his own business doing car repair, wasn't rich, but he managed to pay for my camp fees and uniforms. He dropped me off each morning of summer camp on his way to work. There we learned the routines we'd be performing at pep rallies and football games. We had to stand out in the sweltering Louisiana heat and humidity in August and stand in position for minutes at a time. Any move and you had to do kicks. This was a version of push-ups or having to run laps where you stood and did sets of 25 high kicks for each infraction. I ended up with blisters on my upper arms from the sun. Oh, let me tell you about the sponsor, the teacher in charge. She was the epitome of cranky old woman who had an only child who went through these dance teams and did private dance lessons. She was so perfect to her mom. At the time, dance moms wasn't a thing, but that's exactly like how she was. She would berate me for the smallest things and basically bully me along with the other girls. For example, when I was feeling faint from having to do kicks for the 3rd time that day, I was sitting down beside another girl who'd pulled a hamstring. She's sitting with us while watching her daughter, who was our choreographer, of course, commenting how wonderful she was. She said to me to get back out there. She could understand why the other girl was sitting. She was an athlete, so she got a pass. She played basketball as well. She would yell at me from across the gym to suck in my stomach. She told me I was rude when I was eating lunch with everyone else and laughing at something someone said and coughed on my sandwich. The other girls would say things to me also, and it was as though she encouraged it. Not only is junior high bad enough, but this on top of it was bad. I tried to be strong and show them I could do it, but it made me cry as soon as I got home. This time was different than it is now. Our student newspaper would put out a who's who based on physical traits like best hair and best smile. Way to shoot down vulnerable, self-conscious kids. The night of our first game performance, I was waiting to be picked up with a few others and the sponsor. She went to the bathroom and came back with one girl who was caught smoking in the bathroom with some high school kids. Her punishment was she had to sit out the next game. My dad was running late, he had to work and couldn't just leave his shop unattended, and after about 30 minutes she told me, "You know this means you're off the team." My dad pulled up a few minutes later, and as soon as I got in his truck, I was sobbing. I told him what happened, and he said, "Just a minute, I'll be right back," and proceeded to rip that woman a new one about her attitude towards me. So the revenge. Years later, this woman brings her car to my dad's shop for repair. He remembers her, but she doesn't remember him. She was just as condescending as she'd ever been, treating him like a lowly servant under her because he did manual labor. He was writing her estimate for the insurance, and she kept trying to get him to add stuff that wasn't caused by the accident she was there for. Things like a ding on the back bumper when the damage was in the front, etc. He wouldn't do it, and she got all huffy and said something like, if he didn't, she would have his license revoked. Now, since my dad had his shop broken into and tools stolen, he'd installed cameras. He sent that video to the insurance adjuster, one he had a long, good relationship with in his course of business, and she got hit with attempting insurance fraud charges. I don't know the extent of it, but she should be glad her threats to his livelihood weren't added on there. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.